Just before we start, Gold Coast, live show, tickets, get them.
Get on the link. They're almost gone.
July 16th.
It's a Saturday. That's not long away. We'll see you there.
Hey, Megan. Oh, my. Nice.
This is God is Dead.
The podcast about the worst content on the internet.
The Your Pants Challenge.
We're not just telling these stories for nothing.
Yeah, the gay potion!
It's to answer one simple question.
Is this all proof that God has abandoned us?
Or are we going to be okay?
Chillfully thus far.
And today on the podcast, I want to talk about Gaidis.
Yeah, I don't know what this word means. I'm thinking of like ghee, the substance, or the food or whatever.
And then what does the dis part mean to you?
Yeah, is it like an infection from it or something?
Is it a
I
diss
don't
track
know.
for gay?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking it's something like that. I couldn't tell you what this is about.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to utter, but I hate that churned butter. That's my diss track.
Oh, okay, cool.
No, yeah, that's my gay diss.
Slightly better than Don't Be Gay freestyle. Which, if you haven't seen that, just scroll back.
Don't be gay, 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 don't be gay.
That's a long way away, but you're only slightly better than him at this point.
All right, well, let's dive right in.
God is Dead. Deep dive.
Gaidis. It's such a beautiful sound, isn't it, Gaidis? All right, well, I won't tease you anymore. All right, so the year is 2017. Apparently, I am teasing. And there's this guy called Nate Fernald. He's a writer on The Late Late Show. He's a comedian, and he also has this interest in enamel pins.
Oh, you mean like just a pin that you put on a jacket that
That's
says
exactly
like,
what I mean.
like, woo, like, I don't know, pride or something. Like, shit like that.
Chick-fil-A Pride Month.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Now, this guy, Nate Fernald, he's a pin collector. And so he's sort of doing, what pin collectors do, which is they'll go to sort of record stores or alternative stores, but they'll also go to eBay. And he finds this one seller on eBay. He sees these pins of a character called Gaidis. And he's like, oh, cool, a Gaidis pin. Wait, who's Gaidis?
What do you mean? It says the name Gaidis, or
It
it's
says
like
the name Gaidis.
a picture of something and they've called it
I'm going to show you a
Gaidis.
picture of Gaidis, and I want you to describe it for our listeners.
For some reason in my mind, I'm literally, until now, have been picturing, there's that rumor or the conspiracy theory about Fraggle in The Simpsons. That's what I'm picturing.
I believe you mean Yellow Matt, a.k.a. Grumble, a.k.a. Graggle.
Yeah, Graggle, sorry, yeah.
Well, Graggle's the third iteration of his name.
God, yeah,
Weird
that's what I'm
Matt
imagining.
as well. That could be a case for another day, because
Yeah.
that goes way beyond this year. That started years ago on 4chan.
Gotcha.
And that is a thriving community.
Still.
Yeah. All right. So describe to our listeners what you see here.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, it's a Gaidis pin, of course.
No, it makes so much sense. Okay, it's like, imagine kind of a Yowie, if you remember those like chocolates in Australia, but on like all fours. Although I probably would say it's kind of like, imagine sort of like the build of like a wombat sort of, but like taller. Looks like human hands, little horns, but like it's all just brown. It's like furry brown monster with like a big red mouth, a pink nose, and green eyes. Although it looks like they're just like John Lennon sunglasses at this point.
Give Gaidis a chance, man.
Yeah, I'd say it's sort of, what the fuck is it, like a polar bear type posture?
It's kind of like, sort of Ewok-y, a bit snarfy, a bit snuffleupagus. There's
Alf
a few
from-
characters. Bit Alf,
What,
yeah.
the brown thing.
And then underneath, what does it say?
Gaidis, spelled Geedis.
Gaidis. Gaidis.
Yeah.
And what's your first reaction when you see this pin? Are you like, oh yeah, a Gaidis pin?
No.
Does it look familiar to you?
Just looks like Alf, like it was something in Tarzo's, or like a, like sort of like an, yeah. Not really.
Not really? So
No.
if you found this Gaidis pin, what would be your first reaction?
Well, I would not want to wear it. I don't know. I don't like really wear pins. I would just be like, oh, what is that? It's looking at me very strangely the
Would you
more
be
I look at
curious
it.
about who Gaidis was?
Yeah.
So
No, I would
maybe you Google
Gaidis.
Yeah, you Google Gaidis. So
that would
that's
be the next step for me. Yes.
All right. So that's
Yes.
what Nate Fernald does.
Especially if I figured out it had some value or something. I'd be like, well, hey, I might not wear it, but some other person
Some
might.
other person might. All right. So that's what Nate Fernald does, right? He Googles Gaidis. You know what he finds?
Oh, porn or something?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
There is nothing about Gaidis. And so he's like, oh, what the hell is this? And he's sort of Googling around Gaidis, trying to find anything towards Gaidis.
Gaidis cartoon, Gaidis pin, Gaidis brown thing.
Yeah, exactly. So then he ends up contacting the seller and he's like, hey man, what is this Gaidis? Like, I know Gaidis feels familiar to me, but I don't know where Gaidis is. And everything's on the internet. Why is Gaidis not on the internet? This is really strange.
Yeah.
So the seller goes, I don't know. I just got all these pins from a former seller, blah, 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 blah. So then he's like, well, how many pins do you have? And he's like, 70, 80. And Nate's like, you know what?
Of Gaidis.
Yep, of Gaidis. I'm going to buy them all. So Nate Fernald goes and buys all of the Gaidis pins. And he's like looking at them because he's like, this has to mean something. I don't know what it is.
What an interesting instinct.
What an interesting instinct. Well, I
All
guess
right.
if you're collecting pins and you find this one of this pop culture character that seems to have no cultural hangover on the internet or even any kind of digital footprint, it's a strange thing, right?
From your struthlessapparel.com/the pin experience, are these like enough of a pain in the ass to make that you wouldn't just put a random scribble down there? There would need to be some kind of like significance of Gaidis. It's not just like people make these willy-nilly, or is it pretty easy?
Well, that comes to when it was dated. So this guy knows a lot about pins and he's sort of working out, okay, this is probably late 70s, early 80s, potentially mid 80s as this pin, like given how the enamel is, given the sort of wearing and tearing on it. So in those days, no, those pins were made much more intentionally than they are now. Now it's every man and his dog's got a pin, a beer, and a frickin' podcast, huh?
Yes. Don't they just?
Yes.
Lucky we only got one of those three. Well, you got a bit more than me,
No,
but
I actually think the pins have sold out, but they were an Ibis on a scooter.
woo, 2017 moment.
All right. So Nate does the logical next thing. He gets on Twitter and he writes this tweet. What the fuck is Gaidis? I found this old pin. Google has no answers. Please help. I'm losing my mind. What do you reckon happens next?
Well, no one knows.
Nobody knows.
Yeah,
Nobody
okay.
knows who Gaidis is. All these people, though, start replying, being like, well, Gaidis does look a little familiar. Gaidis does look a bit familiar. And he's like, right?
Okay.
So you know about the Mandela effect.
Yeah, that's what the Graggle thing is. What it's trying to show you.
It's like a hoax of one.
The Mandela effect is like things that everyone collectively almost remembers to be true, but actually it has never been the case. Like a few examples would be like Pikachu in Pokemon. It's like people always imagine Pikachu to have like a little black mark on the end of its tail or not, one of the two, and it actually is the opposite of what everyone thinks. Or like there's like the Berenstain Bears.
Berenstain Bears.
It's actually Berenstain, not Steam, but everyone thinks it's Steen in their head.
The conch in the Fruit of the Loom logo.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, it's pretty interesting. That one's, I don't know, kind of cool. The Flintstones. It was the Flintstones.
Right.
Yeah. And there are the obvious two things that we can conclude from this. Either a bunch of people have terrible memories and have all found each other online. Or what they propose is that there is a multiverse and people having different memories of the past is evidence that they are, I guess, from a different multiverse.
Okay.
I don't know. All gets a bit cerebral for me at this point.
Yeah.
I'm a dumb man.
Same.
Yeah. All right. So, people start kind of like proposing, oh, is this a Mandela effect? Was there Gaidis? Was Gaidis a thing? Or is just Gaidis this one-off thing that came from a pin manufacturer? Because if that were the case, you could probably dismiss it in the way that you did. You could probably just be like, it's just Gaidis. Whatever. Someone probably just made a Gaidis pin.
Yeah. Someone's little drawing.
Now, a month after this tweet, though, here's where things get interesting.
Yeah.
Somebody tweets back, hey, man, I recognize Gaidis from my sticker sheet.
Okay.
This is the sticker sheet that they send back.
Okay.
What do you see here?
Yeah. It says it's the land of Tar at the top, and there's different characters. They're sort of all anthropomorphic, sort of goblin-y, alien-y things with like wings and whatever. But then down the bottom, it has Gaidis. But this is a much more high-res picture. Like it's like not a cartoon. This is like what it looks like in the wild, like the brown fur, the human hands at the bottom, the pig snout with the pink sort of piggish face with ears and horns and eyes, in amongst a few other characters. Zoltan, Harry, Iggy.
Zoltan's sort of this green goblin with his wings, sort of gargoyle looking.
Yeah. Okay.
Tokar's sort of this alt C3PO.
And then it's got hashtag Denison 1981 on the side. So I guess, yeah, you're right. It's the 80s.
1981. So there are a few clues here. So firstly, yes, we've definitely got Gaidis down the bottom. We've got the land of Tar up the top, which might be the world where Gaidis lives. And yeah, we've got Denison 1981. What could all of these things mean? Now, the Gaidis mystery from here explodes. All of these people start getting on it. They're like, holy shit, we've got another Gaidis clue. This is wild. There is this lost franchise. And people start thinking, hey man, I'm pretty sure I remember Zoltan. Zoltan looks familiar.
Yeah.
Somebody finds a second sticker sheet, also from Denison in 1981.
Yeah. Who's Denison? Like, is that the artist?
Denison was a sticker printing company. They've since merged with another company. I don't really know how printing companies are going in this day and age. But back in the 80s, stickers, thriving industry. So there was a while where if you had a gold sticker, like a gold star on one of your books in school as an American student, it would have come from Denison.
Okay.
Yeah, it was...
Big dogs.
Yeah, big dogs, big sticker dogs.
Yeah.
So Denison would also just make these sort of character sheets. So whatever sort of pop culture thing was going on at the time, Denison would make it.
Yeah.
Which is where the mystery gets a little bit stranger, because if this was a pop culture moment that Denison was then making a sticker of,
Yeah.
how come nobody remembers this? And how come nobody can find the origin of the land of Tar? So at this point in the story, what's your suspicion?
That it wasn't that big. I don't know. Like, it just wasn't that big of a show. But someone at the fucking Denison place was like, yo, I want to make this so badly. Yeah, like, or it was not on TV, or it was like, maybe it's from a novel or something. It's been imagined, like, and no one read the book. Like, you know, it's
Nobody read the book.
It's
Okay,
not
that's
got pictures in it.
That's
I
an
don't know.
interesting place to go. Let's go to the book. All right, so this is a book called The Tomb of the Dragon Speaker by Kenneth Vermeer. Now, this was put on Twitter by a girl called Carrie Zinn. And Carrie Zinn found on page 185, I never said I agree, fumed Ursula. Now, remember the name Ursula. And what about Gaidis? She looked pointedly at Gaidis. It smiled benevolently. It smiled benevolently. It smiled benevolently. It smiled benevolently, but remained, as ever, silent. So, here's why it's interesting. Because somebody found a third sticker sheet. This sticker sheet was called The Women of Tar. Yes.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking. All right, describe the Women of Tar to our listeners.
One of them's not a fucking human.
That's Ursula from the book.
Oh my god, Ursula's like a goat, but an alien goat with a
space
weapon.
titties.
Yeah. And then you've got sort of like more elfish, sort of winged characters. You got one that looks like a robot with, you know, a dragon pet, and like they're all sort of wearing like capes and sort of scantily clad as well, with like almost like Xena warrior princess sort of armored sort of titties, I guess is the word for it. I don't know.
The technical term.
One of them's like a Komodo dragon type person with a just like a centaur, but like the bottom half is like a Komodo dragon.
Frank Frazetta, he was a sort of iconic sci-fi artist who did a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons stuff. So that's kind of the work that it reminded a lot of people of on the internet.
Yeah.
Was his. All right, so now we have another clue, right? So we've got Ursula, we've got Gaidis, we've got a bunch of other characters, we've got Zoltan, we've got Uno, all of these people. Now, this person, Carrie Zinn, has put this book on the internet. The book was called Tomb of the Dragon Speaker, Kenneth Vermeer, and it had a reference to Gaidis. That book doesn't exist. Turns out there is no author called Kenneth Vermeer. Turns out there's also no publisher called Renstrom Books, who was the publisher. The cover art was by an actual artist, but that was for a different book called Angel's Prelude. Now, it gets even weirder because Carrie keeps going on Twitter being like, no, this is real, this is real, this is real, until somebody just basically outs her as a Gaidis hoax artist, someone who's trying to fake this for Gaidis attention. And then Carrie releases another picture, which has a publishing note saying, this book was not actually published in 1982, but was made by me in 2017, in tiny text at the front of her hoax. But this was much after the fact that she tried to convince everybody that Gaidis came from this book. So I don't know if Carrie is a high-level troll or if Carrie is a liar and just wanted attention. It's really hard to say. The Gaidis fan club, sort of the Gaidis community.
Did they only exist after that tweet, though, or have they already...
After.
Right. Yeah. They're on the actual genuine quest to find its real origin.
Yeah. So a few people start putting these hoaxes forward and things like this. There was this Gaidis in the Land of Tar lunchbox, but that was sort of an intentional fake that came out.
Yeah.
And then this mystery keeps going for about 2 years, and it's just this iconic, unsolved mystery in the lost media world. Then along comes a podcast called Endless Thread. Now, Endless Thread were like, well, what if we actually tried to solve this mystery? Could we do it? So they make this full investigative piece, and it's a brilliant podcast if you ever want to listen to it. But what they do is they start tracking down any clue that they have. So they go to Denniston, they talk to the people who were there, but it turns out none of them were there in the 1980s. So they find whoever was running the company in the 1980s, and then who were the artists, and then who were the contracting artists. And then finally they get to this one clue where they're talking to this old man who's like 91. He's like, yeah, I was an artist there. And then they're like, well, can you receive the picture on your smartphone? He's like, no, man, I don't know how to use that. Oh, but they heard the sun in the background. So they're like, oh, maybe we can send you the picture. Turns out, incidentally, the son's like, oh, I know this. I know Zoltan. That's drawn by a guy called Sam Petrucci. And they're like, Sam Petrucci? Now, this is actually a decent artist in American culture. Sam Petrucci was the guy who designed G.I. Joe.
Okay, that's
And-
pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty
Iconic.
crazy. He was also a huge logo designer, sort of not the level of like Paul Rand or Milton Glaser, maybe like one step down. But yeah, basically like a pretty iconic illustrator. Unfortunately, Sam Petrucci died in 2013. So then they're like, well, that is a pretty big clue. There's this dude who recognizes Zoltan as Sam Petrucci's work. Here's what Sam Petrucci did leave behind. 5 children who know his work pretty freaking intimately. So they show the children Zoltan and they're like, what do you reckon? And they're like, oh, yep, Dad definitely drew that. Dad definitely drew that. Something about the mouth and the eyes. They're like, that's got to be him. So they go into the art studio with the children and they're like, do you reckon this is your dad's? And they're like, you know what? Let's just go back through his books. So they start going back through his books, find the stuff from the 1980s. Sure enough, find the original concept art from the Land of Tar. They find the original sticker sheets. They only find 2 sticker sheets though. And this is where the mystery stays. And this is why I can't stop thinking about it. They pull out 1 sticker sheet, they pull out the second one. So the first one, which has Gaidis, the second one, which has Uno, and they're like, wow, these are beautiful. And this guy was an incredible artist. There wasn't anything he couldn't do. He could do calligraphy, he could do natural history illustration, he could do anything, right? And he could do this like beautiful pulp sci-fi aesthetic. So they've found part of the mystery. They know who made Gaidis. But what they haven't found yet is the names. Did Sam just draw this? Was this for somebody? And then they find the sketches, which have blue pencil, where he actually has written the names of the characters and the words "the Land of Tar." What this suggests is that Sam Petrucci was trying to create his own fantasy lore of the world of Tar. Now, this is kind of interesting because Sam Petrucci was actually... he got the rough end of the stick in a deal. So do you know the story about the Bittersweet Symphony song?
No.
So the Verve, their biggest song ever, Bittersweet Symphony, it's a bittersweet story. Turns out the rights of that song, they don't own a cent. So the thing that would effectively make all of their money doesn't go to them. So
What
they
is
just got to hope that the rest of their shoegaze catalog, which is amazing, by the
They
way.
didn't get a sample cleared or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I don't know the exact details of why.
Whoops.
Yeah, but it's pretty brutal. So Sam Petrucci has a story like that with G.I. Joe, wherein he was offered either money or stock options for his illustration of G.I. Joe. And it's estimated that if he took the stock options, he'd be making $40 million a year, but he needed the money. I know, it's brutal. So you get an illustrator like this, watches his creation just like blow up. Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't you want to create your own fantasy lore? You've seen this work once. It could work for you.
Yeah.
So that is what that suggests. So part of the mystery that day was solved. Sam Petrucci was the original Gaidis artist. However, there still remains 3 big mysteries. Not too long after this, somebody found a Zoltan pin. And they're like, what the hell? Then an official expert dated it. They're like, okay, this is actually from around the same era.
Yeah.
So that's mystery 1. Mystery 2, nobody knows who made the pins.
Yeah.
even though that the sticker sheets didn't get distributed widely, who would take a random sticker
yeah,
sheet
exactly.
and just create pins from it, being like, oh yeah, this is a Zoltan and a Gaidis pin.
Yeah.
And then the third mystery, nobody knows who drew the women of Tar. Why was the lore extended on? Why were there pins created on characters that never saw the light of day? Why were sticker sheets printed?
Yeah. No one thought to make a pin of the woman.
Oh yeah, that too. But I mean, if they weren't from the same distributors in the same distribution as the other ones, then I guess that can make sense.
Yeah.
But why? Why was the lore extended upon? Why were the pins made on something that never existed?
Final judgment.
So this is the part of the podcast where we usually ask, is God dead? And what we will do typically is take the content as an indicator that God has abandoned humanity or God's here with us. This is a different case. Usually what we do is we talk about ratchet and unhinged things. This is more of a mystery. This is very much up my alley as somebody who loves illustration. Mm-hmm. But Bryce, what do you reckon? Is God dead?
Well, fuck. I mean, like, coming from our, like, traditional, like, cases that we would do, I mean, I feel like it's kind of like how kids have stopped playing outside, allegedly. This is kind of like adults playing outside again, like chasing the mystery, you know?
It is quite
like,
beautiful, isn't it? There are 16,000 Gaidis now.
Yeah, you know, so that kind of like feels nice to know that, like, you know, that random guy's tweet, not random guy, that writer's tweet can then spark. This is what, like, people thought would happen in COVID. You know what I mean? Like, that everyone would, like, band together and, like, take all the clues and come together and, like, figure out it's actually just everyone for them fucking selves. Really. So, like, it kind of is nice to see that people can actually work together. But even still, we still had the people detracting from it with the hoaxes and trying to get the clout, you know? So that'll never die, that clout addiction. I guess, you know, you could say, like, you feel bad for the artist, the guy that's not getting these, like, proper desserts. But I think in general, I like the way that people are banded together. I'd say it's proof of there's hope out there. But I'm not the artist, so I don't know.
I think what's also really cool is this thing that didn't have a life, like this thing that didn't have a franchise when Sam Petrucci obviously envisioned one, has now got one.
Yeah.
I think that is the most beautiful comeback of all time. That Gaidis has gone from this thing which probably lived and died in the imagination of Sam Petrucci and on, I guess, a couple of sticker sheets. But now it's got this full movement and it has a gigantic following behind it, and I would just love to see the Gaidis franchise just explode. I think Gaidis is awesome. I think the land of Tar is awesome. God is great. God is alive, baby.
If that guy had the internet back then, it could have been, you know, just in time for him. It sucks that it had to happen all this time later, but yeah, nice to see a little offcut make its way up to the big sky, you know?
Love to see a Gaid boss winning. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes, so remember, God is Dead live on the Gold Coast as part of HOTA, Home of the Arts.
July
July 16th. On the Saturday. Tickets are literally going.
Show notes.
Please
get the freaking tickets. If you're in Brisbane, if you're in Byron, if you're in the Gold Coast, if you're in Perth and feel like flying, get it. Get it.
It'll be basically the last, like, intimate show that we probably do before we try to take it properly on the road. We're still talking
Gigantic
about that.
national/international tour.
Yeah, but the problem is, look, that might not be for a little bit. Get on this now. It's going to be a bit of a one-of-one show. It'll be like what informs the later shows, but you'll get to see it in its, like, real, raw, gritty glory. So yeah, please go and hit that. Also, some friends of ours are doing a show before us at the 6:30 slot. If you want to watch Besties and you just want to make a whole trip out of it, they're great.
Lewis
as well.
Hansen, Lucinda Price, aka Frooms.
Yeah, they'll be there with us. We're going to go wild, but please get on that. And of course, the Discord's popping too. It's growing, so you can hit that. And of course, Truthless69 online.
Bryce V. Mills online.
Go find the YouTube. Go find the God is Dead.
God is dead. God is dead. Not clickbait.
For all the pictures, and we'll see you soon.
Love you.
Love you.
Case closed.